Welcome everyone. I can see we've got quite a few people joining us already, which is great. Thanks for jumping in right on time. We'll just give people a little bit of time to join us. And we're also just setting up the option for you to turn your camera on if you'd like to. It's always nice to see who's on the call. So if you're willing and you don't have too many other distractions and things around you, please feel free to put your video on. But understand if you don't as well. So you should all have that function set up just in a little bit. If you don't see it at the moment, just wait a minute or two and we should be able to give you that ability.
Hi all, this is Asif from Pakistan.
Hi Asif.
Hi Asif, how are you?
Hi, good.
Just while we're
sorry, Emily.
Yeah, no, while we're waiting for everyone, if you just want to introduce yourself in the chat function as well, it's always nice just to know who's on the call, who you are, where you're joining us from as well.
Sure,
and we'll get started just in a minute.
So you want me to write my introduction in the chat box, right?
Go for it, Asif. That would be great.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Lee. Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Well, it looks like we've almost got everyone here now, right on time. So well done and thank you. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. So it's a joint webinar between ACFID and CLADE, and we're really pleased to be able to be bringing this to you. So as you know, the title of today's webinar is 5 Steps to Financial Compliance, and it's about future-proofing your NGO with Microsoft technology. And we have Ty and Nikki here from CLADE who will be speaking to us in a little while and are really passionate about sharing with you some ideas that they have to help your organisations. So first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're meeting together today on the lands of the traditional owners. For me in Canberra here, it's the Ngunnawal people, and I encourage you to do your own acknowledgements in the chat box as well. But I'd like to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, both past, present, and those in the future as well. And there's a couple of housekeeping rules just to keep in mind. It is scheduled to go for an hour today. There will be a chance for questions at the end. So I'd really encourage you to jot down any that you have as we go. You can use the Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar. So you can add in questions as you go as well as they come to mind, and we'll get to them in the Q&A section. So if you're dialing in on a phone, we will be muting you just to make things easier for everyone else. And I do ask that everyone just stays on mute unless we're at the end asking questions, just to help keep things nice and clear for everyone. There'll be a couple of points in time where we'll be wanting interaction from you. So for those, we just ask you should see the raise hand function down the bottom of your Zoom toolbar as well. So if you're asked to raise up your hand, feel free to use that function rather than just waving with your camera on. And also, if you have any questions at the end of this, Ty is the person to go to. His contact details are there, and I'm sure we can put them in again at the end. And just to note that we are recording this session and it will be updated to ACFID's YouTube channel. So if you do want to go back and look at anything or share it with colleagues, it will be made available to you through that platform. All right, so in case I haven't met you before, my name's Emily and I'm the Standards and Code Lead at ACFID. So I work really closely with my colleagues Paul Brunton and Sophie Seck to do all things code related. Some of you I know through sort of compliance reporting. Others of you might be part of communities of practice. But a special hello if I haven't had the chance to meet you before. So as I said, we're joined today by Ty Phan and Nikki Inglis from CLADE, and they're going to be sharing a little bit about their journey and what they have on offer for ACFID's members as well. So thank you, both of you. And Ty, I'll hand it over to you now.
Emily, thank you so much for the warm welcome and introductions, and thank you everyone for tuning in today to our webinar and our first webinar with ACFID, which is the start of our corporate membership or corporate partnership there. I've also got my guest Nikki English, which I'm going to do a bit of a longer drum roll introduction to Nikki in a little bit as well, because she's actually the specialist on this call today, and she's a big part of Clade as our Business Central practice lead, coming on with years and years of experience. And I think today's engagement, we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. So I'm really loving the fact that everyone's introduced themselves in the chat room. So please utilize that Q&A section, because actually I think Nikki and I both thrive on the fact that we have questions being thrown at us, and this isn't just a standalone presentation. I do also want everyone to be able to leverage as much knowledge from Nikki as possible and get an understanding of her experience, as well as engaging with us afterwards. But in terms of today's webinar, what we're going to cover, a little bit Clade, who we are, because I think this is our first engagement with you guys. You guys are probably wondering, who the hell are Clade? What are we doing here? Why are we partners with ACFID? Then we're going to go through I'm going to throw it back to Emily in terms of the ACFID compliance indicators. Then introduction, I introduced Nikki. We're going to go through a few of the Clade's 5 steps to the road to financial compliance. And I want to make that quite clear. What we're specialists in our technology and how we can get you guys there to financial compliance. And we're going to share a bit of our experience in challenges that we've seen before previously, provide a few more information on technologies itself that helps you guys manage your finance. And then the session itself is going to be about 30 minutes or so, where we're going to treat it like a fireside chat with Nikki, where I've listed a few questions for her to prep on, and then we're going to go back and forth, and where Nikki's going to explain, I guess, talk through her thoughts, her experiences with other non-profits as well as NGOs, and then probably teach you a little bit more about Business Central, which is a technology that we work on, and then wrap it up with, I guess, we're actually offering some ACFID member discounts and how to engage with us in the future, and then the feedback survey as well. But I do, once again, I do suggest use that Q&A. If you guys have any burning questions, please do. We actually have Katie Miller, our marketing manager, just keeping an eye on that as well. So I might throw it to her if there's any Q&A questions in there. I'm happy to sort of stop and answer those questions and then continue on with the presentation. But who are we? Clade, we are a Microsoft partner, everyone. So we specialize across the Microsoft stack of technologies. And if you guys want to know the presence where we are at the moment, we're across Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and Northern Territory. We do, I guess, our consultants are all technical consultants that specialize on the Microsoft stack. So Dynamics 365 in customer engagement, as well as Dynamics 365 in Business Central, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is Microsoft's financial tools, as well as we specialize in the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate and those features. And then also we build bespoke built applications. So essentially anything to do with software in the Microsoft stack of technologies, we do specialize in. We've actually also built a couple of products ourselves, and CAMS is a product that you guys can see on the screen. It's an association management solution, one that we're actually rolling out for ACFID as well over the next few months. Which is what sort of sparked our partnership with ACFID. And then we also have a product called Scrim, which is a work health and safety product. Both products are built off the Microsoft stack of technology. So if you guys have any interest in work health and safety or helping your membership or donations, feel free to give us a call. But it's not about the salesy pitch today as well. And we do specialize with a few key customers that you can see at the bottom. But within our organization, our biggest focus is around the non-for-profit sector. It is probably about 60% of our business at the moment, and we've dedicated our business to the non-profit sector for the last, probably the last 8 years. 8 years of experience there working with charities, associations, peak bodies, government officials and things like that as well, and where we help them across the business with streamlined communications, operations, automation, data, just a whole stack of technologies there. But before we start diving into a few things, I'm actually keen to understand from the audience itself. I think you guys have a hand raising feature on Zoom. How many of you guys are already using the Microsoft suite of technologies? I think I see a couple there. Yeah, Christine, I see Christine and Shannon. Awesome. Okay, so a few of you guys are quite familiar with that stack. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this screen at all, but this is the reason why we've dedicated ourselves to Microsoft. And I thought this is always worth a good run. If you're not familiar with it, I think Microsoft's biggest unique selling point would be, and I'm trying not to be salesy at all, guys. I promise you that. It's more just educating at the moment, that Microsoft have invested a lot of money into building bespoke or not building applications that help businesses run without having to utilize too many third-party tools and integrations and connecting things together. We do have a whole ecosystem, and this is what we specialize in. And for today's conversation, what we're focused around is Business Central, which is a finance application within Microsoft that helps you handle your finance and essentially your ERP. I'm not going to speak too much of it because Nikki, that's your forte. I'm not going to take your limelight, I promise you that. But why did we engage our corporate partnership with Akford? And I think it's always good for us to go through. For us, this isn't about selling or about flogging off a product or anything like that. I promise you that. Today's session is going to demonstrate that. It's about educating, helping learn more about your sector and understand yourself as well, engaging with you guys, with our specialist consultants and to contribute. We actually want to do more webinars. And after this one, getting a better understanding if the content was great or not. Do we have the right person on the screens? Because we do have a stack of specialist consultants that do specialize across the board that I want to put in front of you guys to share our knowledge, to help out as much as we can. But with that being said, I'm going to throw it back to Em in terms of the Akford Code of Conduct.
Thanks, Ty. So yeah, we just wanted to take this opportunity really briefly to, I guess, show how some of the issues that we'll be discussing this afternoon link back to the commitments that your organisations or your partner organisations have already made as part of the Akford Code of Conduct. So one of the purposes of the code is to give the Australian community confidence in the international development sector and specifically in Akford members. And one way that this confidence is provided is through accurate and transparent financial reporting to help donors see how the money that they're giving is being used. So here the code requires members to produce audited financial statements that comply with the Australian accounting standards. And in addition, members also have to include in their annual reports financial statements that are in the Akford Code reporting template. So this reporting template or format places a particular emphasis on your international aid and humanitarian activities. And for the purposes of transparency and accountability, the code compliant format does set minimum disclosure standards for Akford members, which I'm sure you're aware of, but it also ensures consistency of reporting for all Akford members, which does allow for financial information to be compared between different years and also between different members. So Akford uses this information to prepare statistics and reports on the sector and also to work out things like membership fees and so on. So to produce really good financial reports, you need good financial systems in the back end to record, organise, manage and report on your financial transactions. And financial systems are really important, obviously, for good management and governance. So the code requires members to have accounting systems that are appropriate for your organisation's size and your operations. And the code requires that the accounting system allows you to produce reports that help or enable you to do forecasting, budgeting, and review your financial position and performance. So the production of management reports is really critical for good management and good decision making. So here the code requires members to be effective in their use of resources and to minimise financial waste. So your board or management committee, they really need good quality financial reports so that they can carry out their role of providing independent oversight of management. And in turn, good management, good governance contribute to the community having confidence in all of Akford's members and the sector. So financial systems that can provide management reports where maybe things just don't look quite right can be identified. It's one of the most important ways of identifying fraud and other financial wrongdoing, such as funding of criminal or terrorist activity. So a secure financial system and the processes in the back end is also really important internal control to prevent financial wrongdoing. So having appropriate and effective internal controls helps your organization to control and manage your resources and risks. And as you will know, if you're familiar with the code, this is a really central and important part of the requirements, and helps us keep our promises to donors that we're using their money effectively and not diverting it to illegal activity or any such thing. So lastly, the code requires members to meet their legal obligations to other relevant authorities, which includes the ability to meet reporting requirements to ACNC, maybe to DFAT if you get funding through them, state and territory, charity and fundraising regulators. And again, obviously having good financial systems goes a really long way to helping you meet this requirement under the code. So that's a really brief overview, I guess, of what's in the code that kind of links to what you'll be discussing today with Ty and Nikki a bit more. If you do ever want any more information about what's in the code or additional guidance or support on that, you can take a look at our website. If you do have specific questions as well, please, the code team's always here to help. And where there's lots of resources and things on our website and in the good practice toolkit. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of the webinar and find it really useful for your organisation. But back to you, Ty.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. And just on back of the ACFID Code of Conduct and a few of those features there, and I think it focuses around making sure you guys spending the money wisely as well. And that's what we're here for. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Nikki Inglis, who is our Business Central Practice Lead, specialized consultant within the financial sector for quite some time now. Nikki, I'm not going to expose how many years now, but a little introduction on Nikki. She's an ex-accounting pro, passionate about driving better outcomes for customers through ERP modernization. I'm actually here today to sort of reel in her passion to make sure she stays on topic and also within the time schedule, because I'm hoping what you guys are going to see from the webinar today is how passionate she's about the technology itself and the customers. And she's going to provide a lot of insights on what she's done before. She's seen the do's and she's seen the don'ts, and she's seen the disasters as well as the big successes. So we're going to go through a lot of that. And she's a strong advocate for the technology and using it right. So I'm not here to push you on larger, and also give you advice on if this technology is the right one for you. Is it too big or is it too small? Have you outgrown it? And when do you actually need to start looking at a new technology to help your financial compliance? Nikki, anything to add on that slide?
With the multi-industry, it means that we bring an awful lot of experience to the table. Mm-hmm. But the most experienced people are them, because then they tell us what they need and we listen.
I love that. And when Nikki has been listening and helping other organizations out, she's probably did, I think you've done over 120 implementations of a financial platform, but within the non-for-profit sector and within the NGO sector as well. Nikki's worked with organizations such as Healthy Land Water, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Central Land Council, Greening Australia, Primary Health Network, as well as Hope Housing. So she's done a whole lot of things there, Nikki, and I'm not going to get you to talk through this experience in a little right now. I'm going to dive into that in the fireside chat, where I think we're going to have a bit of fun there. But I love this slide here and talking through the 5 steps on the road to financial compliance. And it's key to note that technology isn't going to get you there, but there is a road to finding the right technology, and that technology is going to help you get onto that road. Nikki, do you want to share your 5 tips here?
One of the first things we normally do is audit what's actually happening. What's the strengths, what the weaknesses, and where are all the pain points? Like, what could we make better right now? What could we put in stages to make better? With an ERP specialist, I'm going to go straight on to point 2. With an ERP specialist, normally we go in there and we actually address. And as I've always said to people, we're here to help. If we can't help, we will do absolutely no harm whatsoever. Normally, we're not there to sell you anything. We're actually there to try and help you get better or try and reach the goals that you're trying to reach. So a lot of things now we can automate. 10 years ago, we couldn't automate an awful lot of things, and the cost of doing it was enormous. But now, with the way things have changed in the IT sector, we can actually automate APIs, we can automate with power pushes and do all sorts of things, which actually reduces people's laborious time on doing things that we can make the machine do. Custom dashboards. Now, this is one of my favourite. I like that people to see what they need to see rather than cluttering everything up. and it actually increases transparency as well. You've got to ensure that your ERP supplier has the ability and knowledge. A lot of them go in and you could have, say, a whole group of coders, and they will suggest to you, code everything, modify. No, have a look at going back to basics, have a look what the packages does organically, then see what you have to add on to it. Okay, if you always start with what it can do, most of the time it's just tiny tweaks to processes and procedures, and you can run with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. And I think I want to share a little quote that Nikki chucked in yesterday's session as well. So yesterday we did a bit of a warm-up session to get to this one, because it is our first engagement with Acford. So Nikki and I were a little bit nervous, and there was one piece here we wanted to steer away from. I guess, you know, we aren't compliance specialists, we are the technology specialists, and we're here to help guide everyone as well. And Nikki's expertise is in those pieces there, how to utilize the product to help you guys get compliant. And I think there's sometimes a bit of misunderstanding with consultants or with software vendors that you guys might engage with, and people might think that they're there to solve all the problems. Our job is to help you meet the compliance obligations, and I think if you guys can understand that as well when you engage any vendor, not just us, any vendor or any partner at all that's setting up a new system, it's good for you to know, yeah, they're there to help you meet the compliance obligations, but they're not going to come in and make you 100% compliant. Nikki can put in a system, but your policies and procedures, if your policies and procedures are not good, you're never going to be compliant. So it does start internally, and there's a partnership with yourself and the vendor. And that's one tip that is quite key. You have to work in a partnership there. Nikki, I love that quote. Some problems and challenges before we dive in, and our conversation today is going to be based around the common challenges that we've seen in not-for-profits and NGOs. These are challenges as well as goals that they want to hit. Obviously, everyone wants to increase in operational costs. Everyone wants to increase transparency across finances. You want to ensure compliance with regulations. You want to better manage the volume of donations, especially as you grow as well. When you start seeing all these things, everyone goes, cool, technology. Everyone thinks it's going to solve all your problems. It does solve a few, but you have to use it correctly. And that's what we're going to discuss in a little bit. If you do get the right technology, and we're going to help, our conversation is going to steer towards that conversation. How do you pick the right product, or what can the right product do for you? The right technology itself can help you manage quite a few things. It will improve, I guess, it will improve a lot of things because there's a lot of automation, a lot of set guidelines, and a lot of transparency that's gone out there. I think a big one that we're seeing, and I want to highlight that last point there, the right technology should be seamless for you across the board, operational wise. If you're sitting at your desk now and you're working every day on multiple different systems and they don't talk to each other, that is definitely a sign to start talking to someone, and definitely a sign to start, because when you pick something up and you put something down somewhere else, and you have to constantly move it around to get the right information, something's going to get lost in transaction there. But that's enough being said there on a few slides there. We're going to kick into the fireside chat, Nikki. I hope you're ready. I'm going to do less talking and more asking and listening. And I'm going to kick it off with the most simplest question. Well, I think everyone thinks it's really simple, but it isn't simple. Everyone really thinks the answer to this is when they have money to buy a new system, which I think is a wrong thinking around that. But how can organizations tell if they've outgrown their current financial management software, Nikki? And we have a bunch of people on the call today that are probably waiting for a sign to change software, but what do you think they're looking out for?
Well, a lot of the time is how much time are you spending exporting it to things like Excel and running pivot tables over it, checking the data, getting it from several systems. If you've got a scenario where you've got a lot of items, which some of my have had in the past, the system starts slowing down, people aren't communicating, people are sending things all the time by email, waiting for it to come back. You can tell when things start slowing down and when things start being laborious. Mm-hmm. That's normally when it's time to change and automate.
Yeah. How about from a management level? Like, obviously from a management level, they're not using the system so much, right? They're getting reports from their team beneath them. How does management understand its time?
Well, when it's taking 9 to 10 days to get the end of month financial reports out, or the operational reports and things like that, mm-hmm. Whereas If it's all working properly, you should be able to do that in 2 to 3 days, close, gone.
Mhm.
So if things are taking a long time to get reports, to collate, put together, to send out to a management level, or people are having to wait a very long time to get the data to be able to do their board reports, their operational reports, the system reports, their grant reporting, all of those things. And if they're doing things semi-manually, like sending it out to Excel. Now, as an ex-accountant, I love Excel. I've written letters in Excel. But if you're doing all your reporting in Excel, it takes a lot longer to do.
Yeah. Okay. And then you've done many implementations, but before it even gets there, that there's usually a business case, right? And usually the business case is written from the users of the system. They need to go convince management to pick a new system. What suggestions would you have for someone in that lower rank asking management? What kind of information do they need to include in that business case?
Normally the information they got is how long it's taking them and how many employees they're having to hire to cope with the volume of transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're continually having to hire because it's expanding and expanding to be able to collate and get that information through, then that's normally an indicator that it's growing very rapidly, but the framework may not be actually coping with that workload.
Mm-hmm.
Also is an indicator is if in the lower jobs you're getting very high turnover because the staff aren't finding it not fun, but they're finding it very, very hard to do the job.
Yeah.
Most of the people in this area come to work because they want to, because they need to, and because they want to make a difference. And if they feel they're not making it and they're just marking time, then that starts to show as well.
Do you see a lot of staff turnover?
In some I have, yes, I have seen a lot of staff turnover. One of the ones I actually went and had a look at, Transit Care, they had a division of 10 people that were continually changing. And when we had a look at it, all we had to do was put an automation through, and then them 10 people still kept their jobs, but they actually got 8 hours work done in an hour and a half and could spread across the business and actually start making more of an impact.
Yeah. I like that. And before I jump in too deep into that one, the next question was quite simple. What are some of the common problems shared by NFPs that you've worked with in the past, Nikki?
The common problems tend to be outdated procedures because it's the way they did it 10 years ago or something like that. They may not be aware that technology can actually help them and push things through. Maybe some of them sit there because they just don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. And they're looking at it going, well, if we do this, then this is going to happen. If we do this, then this is going to happen. So a lot of the time I've gone in and actually done quite a few audits on companies, which is where I look at policies, procedures, what they're doing, how the work flows, how the data flows, what's coming out of the end, and then ask them, what's your ideal picture? Yeah. Okay. And one of the problems is they don't know how to go from where they are now to where they want to be. Yeah.
And that's, I'm going to bring you back to the you don't know what you don't know. It's very cliche. Everyone says that, but what do you do? Like, you don't know, so you don't do anything about it. But when do you start knowing, oh no, I don't know that. How do I overcome that? Like, what's a tip that you could give there?
And normally they'll start saying, well, this isn't working. I mean, it's normally not an indicator, and it can be something very, very small that trips it off. Like emails keep falling over, okay? Or there's no authorization process. And I've got an accounts payable person sitting there waiting for 6 weeks for credit cards to come in, right? And the authorization isn't there, so they're spending a lot of time. It normally reaches a frustration point, or their system is so slow or it starts to fail, or they've got 5 or 6 systems and they're jumping through them all the time. So, yeah, that is true. It is a cliche. What you don't know, you don't know. But normally these people all talk to each other. They all talk to their group. They talk to other people and they say, oh, well, we did this. Oh, hang on, we didn't think of that. Do you know what I mean?
Can you give me an example of a situation that you've come across in the past and how they overcame it?
Yeah. Okay. So one of them that I went into, because I keep forgetting not to mention their name, sorry, Ty.
Yeah.
So one of them that I went into is they had 9 different systems and 50% of them were actually replicating each other. And the staff were sitting there saying, oh, it takes so long to do it. Oh, we don't like this. Oh, we don't like that. And then they went to an industry meetup. Okay. Believe it or not, it was in the agricultural area. Okay. And they went to an industry meetup and somebody said, well, why haven't you looked at going to this big system here? What they consider big, not huge corporate, $28 million Oracle, but a larger system than they got. And then they actually approached us and we went out. I actually spent a week there because it was fairly big, and I went through each thing. I just wrote on my little notebook and off I went. And we worked out ways that we could simplify it and then break the whole thing down over 3 years to do for budgeting purposes. And then we went through and broke down the absolute must-haves now, save this now, do this now, but put these in place for the future. And that's the whole point, is we were actually future-proofing them at the same time. There's a lot of systems, you put it in, that's it, that's what you get then and there. But with a lot of the systems that I use, I'm always looking for 2 to 3 years of what's coming ahead that we know of, that we've already got built in. So
how do you look ahead, Nikki?
How do you look ahead? Well, we're already looking at automations, aren't we? We're already looking at APIs. 4 years ago, EDI was one of the hardest things to do. Now we can do EDIs in under a day, dream them all out, and most people think that's actually quite a simple thing to do, and that it just sends invoices. No, it doesn't. It actually does a lot more. And things like automating warehouses. So automatic picking, automatic warehouses to ship stuff out for some of them that actually made goods for the community. And we automated their warehouse for them. And then we knew that new labeling and that was coming. So we made sure that the system we put in and the software we brought didn't have to be upgraded in 2 years with the new labeling laws, because we knew they were coming.
No. Do you do your research?
Well, if they're coming to us to ask us an opinion, we have to research. We're supposed to be an advisor. We're supposed to be their partner. Okay. And we're supposed to be giving them the best advice we can give them at that time. And that's of course prepare for the future.
Yeah, and not all consultants are like you, I guess. And I've only worked with you for the last couple of months or so, Nikki, but not all consultants are like you. And that's why one of the questions I wanted to put forward was, what should non-for-profits and NGOs look for in a specialist consultant? Because there are so many bad ones out there, and then there's a small pool of good ones.
Well, I spent probably 60% of my career fixing things that other people have put in. Okay. Because
how can they get so wrong though? What's actually, I'm going to drive there. Where does it go wrong? Like, give the audience a few red flags of a wrong project. Yeah.
So a lot of the time they listen to reply instead of listen to understand. You should always spend your time trying to understand what those people are doing, what their outcomes are, and what their goals are. A lot of them are just looking to put things into a box. There is no box. Okay, the future is no box. So therefore you have to build it up as a group of things together to help them get there. A specialist consultant, what should you look for? Are you looking for somebody who actually gets as passionate about your environment as they are? Are you looking for somebody who wants you to succeed? Or are people just going in there trying to sell a product? Because there's a lot of whiz-bang things out there, and they'll show you all the bells and whistles, and they'll promise you the world and give you Tasmania. Okay?
Nothing wrong with Tasmania.
Oh, sorry, anybody from Tasmania? But that was just an example. Whereas you should spend the time actually listening to the people.
Yeah.
You should look at where they want to be and then start putting some suggestions in that they wouldn't know about. Like, how would you like to automate this report so it just shows up? The system will run it in a job queue.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. It'll show up every morning. Yeah.
Okay, so you're giving the tips to consultant, but how about to the audience and how they should engage a consultant there? What kind of information do they need to be prepared with to engage a consultant to get the right consultant, as well as get the right information back, and also the right advice? How should a non-for-profit or an NGO prepare for that engagement?
Well, the specialist consultants, when you have a look at them, if I was sitting back in an NGO or an NFP, for the first thing, I'd look for integrity. Okay. They have to be known for their integrity. If you have no integrity in this industry, normally you don't last too long.
Yeah.
Secondly, you have to look is do the goals align? Have they also got, like, if you look at it, I work with also a lot of accounting practices like KPMG, PwC and things like that, who do put in a lot of NFP and NGOs.
Mhm.
Are you a trusted partner? Do they actually respect your opinion?
Yeah.
Do other NFPs and NGOs, do they respect these people's opinion as well?
Mhm.
Or are they just coming in blind?
Yeah.
Okay. So it comes down to a trust level. And would you trust this person? If you had your puppy and you've got a brand new puppy, would you give that person your puppy? If you wouldn't give them your puppy, don't give them your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. But what should you give? And I guess from my perspective, I've had so many organizations come to me with a list of requirements. Some are great, some are very basic and quite short here. What do you suggest? Like that, you got to give the consultant something, right? To give you back their initial proposal and the initial feedback. What does a not-for-profit and NGO have to prepare?
Normally it would be, what are their biggest pain points? So I'd always ask for your 10 biggest pain points.
Mhm.
What are your biggest pain points? And then where do you actually want to be?
Yeah.
And then the thing would be, over what time frame?
Mhm.
Because I've had an NFP come to me and they wanted a full revitalisation
Mhm.
with portals and everything, with payroll and with electronic tracking.
Mhm.
And they wanted it to be all put in a week.
Mhm.
So therefore, you actually have to have a look at realistically how you can actually do it.
I like that. Okay. And then how would you formulate that in a document, Nikki? Can it be simple English? Can it be dot points? Does it have to be diagrams?
It can be dot point. You can show your current process flows. But then one of the first things I do is set up an appointment and actually talk to a real human.
Yeah.
Right? Talk to a human that can actually understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. How many should they talk to before they make a decision on one?
I'd recommend three to four.
3 to 4?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Whenever you're going into this, it's you normally don't, unless you're really comfortable, okay, have a look and weigh things up. Like most people normally don't marry the first guy they go on a date with, okay, unless
Yeah.
he's sensational.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got the right one for your partnership, because it should be a partnership.
Yeah. And what kind of process do you think they should put them through? What should they ask the consultant to write back? A proposal? A framework? How should they make that decision?
The first thing I do is send them over a list of requirements and see what they come back with. And of course, I'm sitting on the NFP and NGO side, I'm going to grade them on that. Okay. Are their answers clear back to us? Do we actually understand what this consultant's saying to us? Are they using a lot of slang, internal slang that we're not going to understand? Okay. That's something I would also look at. Okay. Secondly, I would see if they're willing to do a visit, come out and talk to us, come out and meet up with us, listen to us, to what we have to say. Because a lot of consultants out there will have an opinion in their head, but it's 80 degrees off mark.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing they should look for is, how willing are these people to be engaged? Is it just a salesperson talking to them? Or have you actually got a specialist sitting behind them asking some really quirky questions because they've already come across it before, and you know, they got burnt? So are they asking the right questions, or are they just asking sales questions?
I think that there's some key tips there. If you can give three tips before we move on to the next question, in what should NFPs and NGOs look for in a specialist consultant? The top 3.
Trust.
Yeah.
Experience. Willingness of engagement. Now, engagement can be different to a sale. How willing are they to be engaged to help you reach your goal?
No, I love that. Next question, Nikki. When should they start looking at products, and what should they look for in a product? I think that's after you got your consultant, then the consultant's obviously going to put some products in front of you after they've scoped out your requirements and used that's the process that provide you your list of requirements, and take that out to tender, right? So when should they start looking at products, and what should they look for in a product?
They should start looking for a product normally when they're starting to get to the end of life of the product they've got, or when the frustration becomes too high. Okay, there can be a very big difference there. Okay, and what should they look for in a product? Okay, list down your top 50 things. List down your top 50 processes that you do the most and that you need it to do. It may not be doing it now, okay? Like having projects all in one system, having automatic acquittals of grant reporting, things like that. Can it do it now, and will it be able to scale in the future? Because if, as I said earlier, if you buy for now and you put in for now, you actually haven't planned for the future. So whatever you buy, it actually has to be scalable. And that is a huge thing. So you're not replacing systems every 3 to 4 years. One system can actually go, and I've had a couple on it. They've had the same system for 15 years. We keep doing the updates to it, but we actually haven't had to change the system because it was scalable, and it was they're able to keep it.
And that's the second part of the question, right? So what are you looking for in a product? And number one for you is scalable. What else is there? And I think I make it clear. Most products, there are great products in the market as well. Yeah.
Ease of use.
Yep.
How easy is this to use? Was it written by somebody sitting in a basement somewhere that's done coding for 83 years? Does it make sense to the people using it? It should be easy to use. You should not have to be a coder to use a system. And secondly is, how friendly is it? Can I use it on my phone? Can I use it on an iPad? Can I use it on a laptop? Can I be working from home or on a hospital or on a hotel balcony and I've still got connection to everything? But I've still got full security. And that's another thing we should be looking at is, how secure is the system? How secure is the infrastructure? How many ways can this one product be made to fit my entire organization if I've got 83 different departments? How bendable is it?
Anything else? How do you even judge the security piece?
Well, of course, it all comes down to ISO. Like, when Microsoft products start talking to each other, a lot of people aren't aware of how that actually occurs. So say a Microsoft sales and marketing, talk to my BC. Okay, how do we do that? It actually comes through something known as a TLS, which is a transport layer of security. That's actually encrypted data going through. So it's encrypted, which actually is a lot. Very, very, very hard to hack. So I've done quite a few penetration tests in case anybody's ever worried about hackers and things like that. Yes, I have been involved in quite a few penetration tests. And what they actually do is try and break in. Okay, so you're always looking for, how can we protect our data? And if we've got several different systems all put together, we tend to call them Frankenstein systems in our piece, okay, because it's a lot of different pieces put together. With the Frankenstein system, you have a lot more security vulnerability. Okay.
So anyone with dispersed systems should be looking at putting it all together and linking them together. They are open to cybersecurity attacks, and I think that's such a big topic these days as well. Okay.
Well, with ISO compliancy too, like 27001 and 27017, they're already built in, and then you've got encryption layers over the top, and then we can actually add fraud protection onto the top. And then in the system themselves, we can actually create rules that people can't change bank accounts without 2 people authorizing it. Because how many times have you heard in places that somebody was working there and they transferred all the money to their own bank account? If you have the right security protocols in place in your systems, you have it in procedures, but if you actually have it in your system, okay, you're actually a lot more secure.
All right, Nikki, I'm going to move on because we're moving into
Sorry.
the product now.
Okay.
And I guess to let everyone know, Nikki specializes in Business Central, which is a Microsoft product in terms of ERP and doing financial. Nikki, for this question, I want to focus it back onto non-profits and NGOs. And I want to focus around, like, obviously questions why and how did you pick Business Central? But I want to focus around things like improving grants and handling donations and helping drive donations and things like that you've done before with non-for-profits. How does the Business Central product relay straight to non-for-profits? And I guess that sort of answer why you picked it as well as a product for you to specialize in for the last 10 odd years. Yeah.
Well, because Business Central is actually made up of several modules. Okay. So it's several modules all put together in the same product. So it's not a Frankenstein system. It's just different parts of the same product. So when we first started having a look at it, Business Central is for when you've outgrown Xero and MyOb and those sort of things as well. But this is scalable. So therefore, with a very robust finance system, we know that we can do grant acquittals. Okay. We also know that we can do project costings. We also know that we can do job costings. We also know we can do payroll. We can do resource allocations. We can actually do all those things in the one system, which is why I actually went to it. Oh, bye, Shannon. So when you have a look at it, to me, it was pulling everything together to making it do what I wanted it to do with ease of use and cost, because you've always got to look at the cost factor.
The cost. So Business Central is one of the most cost effective in terms of ERPs?
It is, yes, because it's got quite a few modules to it. It's also got business intelligence. It's also got AI learning in there as well. It's also got adaptability and APIs, and it's also got a very good reporting base. Yes, that's why I picked it.
Okay.
So it also streamlines a lot of things, and I like the way that we could get visibility rather than go to several different areas. We actually increased the visibility. I have heard of one NFP that I went into, and unfortunately, they'd lost $120,000 due to non-visibility of being able to be used. That's horrific for an NFP. So if they get better visibility and transparency, then they can see it. It's theirs. They can control it.
Okay. And bring it back. Does that has options for grant management? How have you rolled it out for an actual non-for-profit before?
Well, with grant management, you've got to go through the acquittal process and how they do their grants. We've done it quite a few times, and it's on the setup and mostly in the initial infrastructure. We have a look at the grant and then how we are going to acquit that grant. Now, grant acquittal it sounds easy, but you've always got to have it right, and you also got to be able to do the forecasting for the grant as well. You can have budget and disbursements and things like that in the grant acquittal, and you can always show immediately where this grant was actually spent, how much is left, and what's actually planned for the future.
So it's got real-time data.
Yeah, and we can have several grants going. I mean, it's not just one grant. I mean, we could have 100 grants going at the same time.
Yeah, and reporting is real-time?
And reporting is real-time. It has to be really time.
Yeah. I didn't actually, it has to be real time. Is that a compliance thing that people have to keep up to date to as well?
Well, if you're looking at things, it's normally better to have real-time reporting. Okay.
Yeah.
With the accounting standards, probably B9, no, but it is always better to do, because then you make sure you're not missing anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely see that.
Oh, and we like plugging into everywhere and giving everybody their reports, like the EPA and all those other things. Man, them reports just flow off.
Yeah, no, I like that. I'm gonna move on. So we're running short on time, and I know how much you love talking about the product itself.
Yes.
Give me 2 seconds. So the product isn't everything, and I think the product is not everything. Most products will do the same thing. Like it just has to be delivered right, and it has to be right for yourself as an organization. And I think everyone always underestimates that delivery process there. Like you can't go. So you got your consultant, you have your product. Now starts moving delivery. What do we need to be aware of as a non-for-profit or as an NGO when we move into project delivery?
When you move into project delivery, like the way I do it, I always have a Gantt chart, so we always know what's coming of what we've agreed to. You normally do an audit, then a scope of works, and then you sit down and you agree on a project delivery timeframe. In that project delivery timeframe, a good consultant will always tell you how much of your resources they will need.
And how many resources should they prepare for?
Well, it's normally the subject matter experts. So I normally hit the heads of the department and I train those, and then they train their staff. Okay. But when you have a look at it, is you are going to take some of their time, and there's also block out times. Like when we're doing audits, when they're doing audits, I've already inserted myself into their business. So when audits or lockdowns or things like that are happening, we can put block out times into the project delivery. And then everybody has a reasonable expectation. You should also have a risk list of risks that are coming up or risks of this going off track. You should also have an issue list. So if somebody's like, hey guys, if we actually don't get the Azure cloud up, we ain't going to be able to start anything. Okay. So you should have an issue list. But another thing you should also have is a weekly meeting with each other. Like the amount of projects that I've seen get derailed, not mine, they're the ones I come in and normally say, is because communication is failing. When you're putting a project in, you should be an active part of their team to help them get it through.
Okay. But if you got, I guess, a big thing when I move into project delivery in most of the projects, that sometimes our clients or our partners are always concerned at how much time that their staff are you doing on the project itself. To prepare most organizations, let's say their heads work 5 days a week. How many days a week should they be dedicated to the project, you think?
Normally a day and a half.
A day and a half a week? Okay. That's good. 25-30% of the week. Okay. And that's every head that they utilize for each one of these financial implementations? Okay. Awesome.
Well, the finance people come in for the finance things, and the other departments normally come in on the other areas. But if one was very heavy project based, okay, which is where grants would go to for a project to do something, then they might need a little bit more time, but you normally find that out in the deep dive. Now, if nobody comes out and does an audit or offers to do a deep dive, they're going into that project blind, and that's where projects fall over. If you don't know what you're walking into, you will fall over.
Okay. No, a day and a half sounds about right. So a day and a half for the entire length of the project? Yep. Okay. Awesome, Nikki. I want to bring, this is the final question. I want to bring it back and I want to share some knowledge, because I know we're all in the non-profit sector at the moment, but you've worked with over 100 different organizations across the board in everything, from what I know so far, from the short time that I've known you. I feel like you had your hand in almost every industry, and I think every industry can learn from each other. What could you share with the non-for-profit and NGOs listening today on what you've seen from other technology and how they can leverage that and how can they benefit from that information?
The favourite one that I've seen in the last, say, 14 months that I've been watching is automation between SharePoint and document repositories and your ERP systems. Okay, so certain triggers get done and they get sent through. Another thing I really like at the moment is linking everything to banks, and everything's automatically there for you. But one of my favourite that I'm absolutely passionate about at the moment is Power BI reporting. Because then you get to pick, choose, drill down and see what you want and publish the reports that you want. I mean, in Business Central, I've got 375 standard reports. But what if I wanted a bit of each of those reports? Okay, I can do that in Power BI. And it's the business analytical reporting now, and also the business intelligence, that we can start going further in trends, having a look at changeable budgets, what if scenarios, and we can start planning better for the future.
No, I like that. And anything else? Anything else you want to leave the audience with a few tips from outside? What's coming up? You always said it's good to forecast. What's coming up, Nikki?
What's coming up? I think what's coming up next is going to be probably more APIs created to make apps and things easier for people to use.
Mm-hmm.
So where you used to have to pay for a whole program, now you can just get the little bit you want and add it to what you've got.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Nikki.
Okay.
I haven't seen any questions pop through, but I want to throw it to the audience before we wrap up and see if there's any questions that you might have as well. I think it's also a good time to mention that we are doing a few things with ACFID and with our membership as well. We want to offer, quite a bit of discount for anyone that's listening or anyone's an ACFID member. And one of those is a 15% discount on all of Clade's services. And I actually want to throw in, if we get a few people, 5 people or so, I think the maximum of 5, Nikki would come in and do a free consultation, just for a couple of hours, having a conversation, understanding your business and seeing where we can provide some assistance at all. And if you guys actually want to reach out to us and get that offer, feel free to shoot myself an email. I think my details will get sent around later on as well. But thank you so much for listening through and hearing us today. Actually got a question, Nikki, before we wrap up as well. Sean's asked, can the software do multi-currency consolidation for multiple business entities? Nikki, you're on mute. How did you go on mute so quickly?
I think you put me on mute, Tom. Can the software do multi-currency consolidations for multiple business entities?
Yeah.
Yes, it can. One of the biggest I've done was 179 entities, all in different currencies.
Where? Yeah. You
can,
can't tell me the organization. Yeah.
You can actually do multi-currencies, and on the consolidations, we can do different groupings, whether it's 100% consolidations. We can, it actually does do all of that. We also get your currency feeds automatically. This is part of the automation. We get that actually put in every single day as a feed from the RBA. And of course, that's going to equip through to the recognised and non-recognised FX changes.
Awesome.
Did that answer it, Sean? Yes,
yep.
Of course you can.
Of course you can, Sean.
And I can send them across the details on the consolidation and multi-currencies, because I get excited when I get to do them.
Yeah, Sean, we'll probably send across some information on Business Central as well, and add a bit more details to the slide deck to anyone listening. But yeah, there's quite a few features. And I think the point of today's session was there's so much information that we could throw at the audience and walk you through Business Central and walk you through the technology itself. But we wanted to introduce Nikki to ACFID first as our first engagement. And if you guys want to engage us in terms of getting in touch with Nikki with any financial advice in Business Central and our systems, feel free to reach out to myself and I'll set something up with Nikki there for you guys. If there's any more questions, I'll give you guys one last second. If not, I'm going to throw it back to Emily. One last slide. Just on time.
Thanks, Ty. Thank you to Ty and Nikki for your obviously passion for this subject and for sharing some of your thoughts about how ACFID's members can start thinking about what they might need to do, particularly in preparing for doing a bit of an overhaul of systems. So as Ty has said, please feel free to get in touch with him directly if you have other questions, or of course you can always come through ACFID as well. There will be a really short survey, promise only 60 seconds. It'll take you emailed to you after this session. And this will be really, really valuable for us to know if we do further sessions in the future, what you'd like to hear about, and also what you found helpful or not helpful about today. So as Ty said, we're just kind of starting out running some of these webinars. So I know that we'd all really appreciate your feedback as well. And as Shweta has put in the chat box, we will send you the slide deck in an email after this as well. So it will be available to everyone. But thank you everyone for your time, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. All right.
Thanks everyone.
Soon. Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks everybody.